always came well prepared. I don't know if I gave you guys this example, but what Bruce used to do during a meeting is the professionals would be up in front of the board at tables usually. And at the corner of the table, he would have a legal pad with a list, an itemized list of everything he wanted to speak about and in the order he wanted to speak about, and all the points he wanted to make. And all he would do was stand up and walk, pace back and forth before the board very slowly. And every once in a while, every time he passed his table, he'd peek down and make sure he was looking and moving on to his next point. We'd always meet 5 or 15 minutes before the meeting to review what we were going to discuss and talk about. We'd go over his notes, but he was very well prepared and he was very well interpreted from the audiences that he had to speak in front of. And you got to think about your audience, because anytime you're a speaker, whether it's getting up in front of a board to provide legal testimony or teaching a class, does someone have a question? I'm sorry, probably just a video or an audio glitch, but you want to have that presence about, you want to have that expert knowledge about. I also told you, I did speak to you guys earlier in the class about your need to know your project. If you're giving testimony, you need to review those plans, especially if you didn't design it. And it's perfectly legal for you to provide testimony on a set of plans that you didn't design, but you would be responsible to review those plans and calculations and then provide your signature on it as well. But another good thing, and I think I also mentioned this to you, is don't ever go to a meeting like this, even a project site meeting or a kickoff meeting, without trying to visit the site or at least Google Earth it, look at any site photos. Become familiar with the site before you start discussing it. One of the big things I always, all the professionals always taught me when I started doing meetings was, get to a site before the meeting. Even if you need to do it a half an hour before the meeting, get to the site, walk it end to end, know exactly what everything on that plan looks like in the real world. Now, on top of that, I've also told you, or maybe I didn't, but a lot of public speaking comes from confidence. Confidence, of course, is going to come from repetition, just like anything else you do. But that confidence is easier to find when you know what your plan is, when you have reviewed the plan, when you have been on that site. You guys should have some confidence with this project because you're designing it, and I'm asking you to speak about the parts that you designed. So hopefully that will help you. I'll let you know, during these meetings, I'm going to try to get you guys all unmuted. I don't appreciate chuckles if people get nervous and can't speak. I like to use this as a learning tool and a chance for people to gain experience public speaking, especially if you haven't had a lot of it. When I was younger, I used to play in some rock and roll bands. Quick little peek actually into my personal life. You can see over there a series of like 7 guitars. Still play, but the first time I got up on stage, I was probably about 16 years old, and I was so nervous, and I had butterflies in my stomach. I could barely move, and I literally needed to drink a bottle of Pepto-Bismol to calm my stomach. And it takes time, it takes practice. It's, but years later, I had the experience. Getting up on stage wasn't a big thing. I was no longer getting booed off. I got some skills. I what I do now, I don't have an issue getting up in front of people and speaking. Last 2 years I spoke at Autodesk University. I think I've told you guys that's a global audience of engineers, surveyors, CAD geeks, tech professionals, and that's another arena where you can't pull the wool over their eyes. You've got to know what you're talking about. And it's best to prepare your own material so you do know what you're talking about. All right, so generally speaking, for public speaking, what you really want to do is slow down. You want to take breaths, especially if you start getting nervous or flustered. Pause, take a deep breath, relax, and continue your conversation. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Regain your thoughts. Speaking slower helps you relax. And taking deep breaths, you guys should all know this is one of the best ways to calm yourself. So breathe deep while you're speaking, and keep yourself calm. You know what you're talking about. It should be an easy presentation. I'm not asking you guys to go out and visit the site, but in the real world, on a real project, those site visits are critical, even if it's just a kickoff meeting with professionals, so you know what the real world is. When you give your presentation, have a good outline. Know exactly what you want to speak, be able to follow it. I recommend you practice and time it, and make sure you meet your allotted time. You guys don't necessarily need a PowerPoint presentation for this. When I go to a meeting, I have my plans printed. I put them up on an easel, and I submit them as evidence to the board, and I just cycle through them and explain what I am proposing. And then I get questions asked about what I am proposing, and they decide if they want to approve what I am proposing. That's the overview of that process, and it's very, very general, of course. But when you guys present this, what I want you to do in general terms is get up, introduce yourself, provide your credentials as we would before a board. If you guys went to a board, you know that every professional has to get up before the board and provide credentials that would justify the board accepting them as an expert. And you need more than just your degree to be deemed an expert. You're going to need experience in there. Hopefully you have bosses that will guide you into that. That's how you will get it. They'll give you, start you off on something simple like a parking lot expansion or a pool plan, and you start taking them in, and then eventually you'll start doing bigger things and you become a recognized expert in your field. But provide your names, your credentials, and then I want you to describe your project, and that is providing the scope. And we all know the project is, in a nutshell, we are proposing a subdivision of land, construction of a new residential roadway, installation of storm, sanitary, and water utilities to serve the road and the new building lots. That is the scope of your work. You should then quickly introduce the existing conditions and then demonstrate how you met design criteria for your project. This is ultimately what the board is approving. And what you are going to do before the board is tell them this project is governed by the municipal bulk zoning code, it is governed by RSIS, and it is governed by the state stormwater rule. And you're going to tell us how you meet those rules through your presentation. You'll have about 20 minutes to get through this. So you're not going to be able to go into great detail, but you should hit on the critical points, such as for your stormwater, you should be able to explain that the current codes, the stormwater rule and RSIS, make you meet 80%, 75, and 50% reductions in the 100, 10, and 2-year storms respectively, and that we have met them, and here's our summary chart to demonstrate that. And your summary chart should be in your report. So you could basically have on your screen sharing your plan and your report, and you can get through this entire presentation because, again, your report should be demonstrating your compliance with the code. That's the whole purpose of your report, is tell me what you're doing, or tell the town what you're doing, or the governing agency who's reviewing it. If there were wetlands that we were dealing with, riparian zones that we were dealing with and disturbing, we would be dealing with DEP. So these same plans and applications would be made to DEP. So you need to demonstrate to those agencies that you are meeting all their rules, AKA all the law. And that's generally what you need to do through the course of your presentation. Are there any questions on what you need to do during your presentation? If so, post them in the chat. I'll give you a few minutes, but if none are heard, I don't see any questions. Again, if you guys have questions on what you are submitting, and this is really what it comes down to now, is you've got this project to submit in how many weeks now? Dun, 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 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. You got a month left, all right? Looking good. I hope you're caught up. If you're caught up and you're working on your residential grading and fine-tuning some of the hydraulics, you're in good shape. You're in real good shape and shouldn't have an issue. If you are far behind, you're going to have big issues and you're going to be cramming, and meeting those requirements are going to be pretty tough. Again, all your requirements are in this document. The requirements for your presentation. And the requirements for these are the minimum requirements for maps and reports. And this is your specific phase 1 and specific phase 2 down here. All right. Don't forget, sheet 1 of your plan set is going to be your revised subdivision plan. I gave them all back to you with markups after the phase 1 submission. So you will resubmit them as sheet 1 of your plan set. Again, everything you need for the maps is in here. And don't forget to check your notes. I gave you further design criteria. As an example, I gave you maximum proposed grade is 1:3. I gave you the general guidelines for all the utility layouts. You guys have to do a quantity takeoff. You can get up onto the internet and look up approximate prices for these. You can contact manufacturers, contact contractors if you know any who are willing to help you out. But this information is pretty readily available. I'm asking you to put cost onto it, just so you guys can get an idea. It's really more of a quantity takeoff, but try to put cost estimates to it so you can get an idea of what it would cost to construct this project. I will let you know my approximate magic number at the last day. Here are the requirements for your reports. Again, this is all basically fully outlined for you. Everything you should be discussing, and everything you should be getting in there to tell how you are meeting and abiding by the rules or the code. Of course, ignore the honors class if there are none. But is excavation included in the takeoff? Yes, you should include quantity of cut and or fill, and any import and or export, again, the net, that would be required for that.
So we would need like trucking prices, hauling and whatnot, just dumping and et cetera?
If you can get hauling prices, I definitely want to see the quantities. Do you have them?
Okay.
But you can definitely look up some rough quantities for hauling, yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Again, I'm not looking for perfect numbers from you guys. I'm hoping for you guys to get an idea of what it might cost on this. So much like the rest of this project, where I know that you guys are not professional engineers who have been practicing for 10, 20 years. And I know that your designs may not be perfect. But I'm expecting them to be close. I expect to see a sanitary sewer in the size of 6 to 8 inches, not a 36-inch sanitary sewer. So I expect to see gravity conveying flow of that sanitary sewer. But I'm not going to go through and nitpick every little thing, and if, you know, a pipe size could have been, you know, one size smaller, you're not going to get points off of that. So as far as submitting the materials, that is a good question. What I am probably going to do is, if you have, and I don't want to make one global, you know, share box or something for this, because it's going to be a lot of data. But is there anyone out there who doesn't have a free, like, Google Drive or some other account that they couldn't post it, where I alone could access it, download it, and then you could make it unavailable to the world directly after I download it? Is there anyone who cannot do that? If so, please put it into the chat. Because what I am hoping that you can do is you can send me a link to a Dropbox or similar cloud storage site where I could download your PDFs, final PDFs of the sheets, your DWGs for the whole project, your storm sewer files for storm and sanitary, your hydrograph files for the residential and the detention basin sizing, and anything else that you have accumulated for this project. Again, you're supposed to be submitting all the digital material. I am doing ABET accrediting, and I need to send in a couple of samples of this work, and I send it in both hard copy and digitally, and I'm hoping that they forego the digital or the hard copies this year, and we can submit only, hopefully, digital. But if there's anyone who has a problem with getting me the materials via a Dropbox or any other cloud sharing site, please let me know and I will make accommodations. All right. So there's no questions. You guys are all good with sizing your sanitary sewers, storm sewers, drafting this all up, making maps, putting this report together? Can I go over? Yes, I can. I can go over soil erosion and sediment control. There's one question. We've had 2 questions, all right? I will go over anything you need me to go over. Can we go over working with the numbers on the material tables? Yes, we can go over working with the numbers on the material tables. All right. We are not going to make a dynamic sum. The question is, can we get the tables to dynamically sum? If we used a single corridor, we could get a single table. They're without coding, either XML or .NET, you're not going to get the Civil 3D tables to sum. What you can do is you can make an AutoCAD table that will allow you to just update numbers as they change, and then the sum will be computed for you. That I can review. And that is a pretty easy one. Let's start there and keep questions coming. Yes, residential grading. We can go over that. Let us first look at our earthworks. All right. So, unfortunately, the developers did not leave us much to do with these tables. They are populated, and if you go into any one and edit them, you are really limited to the amount of information that you could put in them. And that is all just based on the sample line and the material. So you can put in swath widths, net volumes, and cut areas, fill areas, all that stuff. But there's no way to really do math on a Civil 3D table where I can come in here and right click and insert a row or insert a column and start summing values. But an AutoCAD table can do that. And if you go to your tables, table styles, I have one set up. If you're using an NCS, you probably have only the standard. But these are just AutoCAD table styles. You can manage the table styles here and create your own. Here's mine. If you hit modify or new, you'll get this dialog. You can set different settings for data, headers, and the title of your table. You figure it all here. And you can set fill colors, alignments, data types, and all that stuff. Sizes.
Professor?
Yes.
So I don't know if everyone's seen this, but there's a, like, some of the toolbar up top is being blacked out. Can't see it. I don't know if it's
just a recorder, right? Okay.
Maybe.
Is that better?
No, it didn't do anything.
Okay. Let me close that. And does that do anything? Full screen for participants? No?
No, it's still blacked out. Some of it.
Okay, hang on. All right.
That did something. That removed some of it.
All right, so yeah, that's the recording. Let me see if I can just minimize this a little bit. You see the top of Civil 3D there now?
It's just half the ribbon up top is blacked out.
Good.
No, it's still there.
All right, hang on. Let me, instead of sharing my screen, let me try sharing the application. Share content. Is that any better?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right. No problem. So, again, I went to my annotate tab. You have your text, dimensions, centerline, tables are right here. You click that little drop down arrow and you get to your manage table. And this is where I took you guys in for the modify or new. You're going to get the same dialog and allows you to set up your general properties for lines, for data headers and titles. And then you can also set up text and borders. So you can set up your own table, but tables will do your sum, and it's still going to take some manual work, but I would need really just 2 columns, 4 data rows, hit OK, and I would put this in here. Minor scale, pretty small, but in here I could put in total earthworks, and then I'm going to zoom in a little bit more into my table. And over here you would have cut, go over one, you would have fill. And actually I would need a third. Is everyone familiar with AutoCAD tables? These work very much like a spreadsheet. And you can do with a right click, you can do a lot of the things that you would do in Excel. Like I could add column, insert right, and over here you could have net. And I guess that hold on, that background color is not going to do you guys any good. Let me change. There you go, a little better. Yes, I'm sure. So this table works a lot like Excel. I would actually need one more column. Insert left. And this would be area. And then you could just put in roadway. And in my case, I have 2 roads. I think I have Fender Road. And then I have changed data type. I have Gibson Road. And then I have the detention basin. And then, of course, you could type in your values. And I would probably, again, find another reason to split my windows here. I can see these guys and this together. And I'd come up here and I'd look at, I'm not sure which is the right road, but this is 1933. This is 45. And this is 188.8. And you don't even need to do the full, but you want to see if you're balanced. This over here, 1078, 1571. and this is a minus 493. And then you come down to your third table. And then if your areas change, you can just update the sums. If you didn't have the cut and fill, you just have the total. You really don't need the cut and fill. I'm just putting it in for demonstration. 225. And that last one is minus 123. Then down over here, just like Excel, equals sum, parentheses. Now this is where, unlike Excel, you can't just click cells and drag them. You literally have to type them out. So this is going to be D123 semicolon D345, and then end the parentheses, and we get our sum. You can go to your table, your properties, and change the precision. Generally, all of them you want to. So that's one way you could do it. You could use a text string too, but we are not going to be able to get Civil 3D with multiple corridors to sum the tables without some sort of scripting. If you're new to Dynamo, that might be a good task for Dynamo, but out of the box, Civil 3D is not prepared to do it. This table is small, made for paper space, so I could scale it up by 12. And it's closer to this other table size. So I could show these three tables lined up a little nicer on my plan with, like I said, 4 or 5 typical cross sections. You don't need to print out all of them. All right, so did that answer the question for summing the tables?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So what else do we have? Soil erosion. Let's look at that. Here, and some extents, sample lines, and I'm just going to save this. And so what is the question with the soil erosion and sediment control? Is it how to make the plan, or what is required on the plan? How to make. So the plan